Can anyone hear me? Okay, I think everybody can see my screen now. Is that true? Can everybody see my screen? Okay, great. So Thursday greetings, everybody. So today's lab is a fun lab. And basically the idea is to get version control up and running, and that way you can use version control in your coursework. You will be required to use version control in your coursework. And today I'm gonna give a little demonstration about the version control. So the first part of the demonstration is just a demonstration of Netbeans. So I personally use the Netbeans IDE. Using Netbeans is definitely not a requirement, and you don't have to use it. I just tried Eclipse and I didn't find it to be very user-friendly, so I switched to Netbeans. I've heard that other people switched to IntelliJ because they thought Eclipse wasn't so great. And so just as a fun exercise, I'm going to show you how to set up Netbeans. It's a very short demo video. This could be interesting for some people. It might not be interesting for everybody. But I thought I would show it as as a educational exercise, the process of setting up Netbeans. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. If anybody cannot see my screen, please let me know. So I'm really starting from the very beginning here. I'm just opening my web browser and searching for Netbeans. Netbeans is one of the original IDEs for Java. It was one of the very first ones. It was also an IDE that was dedicated to the Java language when it started. That doesn't seem to be true anymore, but it seems to be true. It was true, a long time ago. So this is me searching for Netbeans, going to netbeans.org, and then trying to figure out which version to download. I am looking for the version for the Mac operating system, because I'm using a Mac at home. I encourage everybody to try downloading their favorite IDE, either Eclipse or IntelliJ or Netbeans, and installing it on their own computers. I think it's easier to do that than trying to do it from the lab. So there's me saving the Netbeans to my local downloads folder. It's quite big, so I'm not going to show you the time it takes to download it. And here's me installing it on my Mac OS, going through the steps of installing it after I've downloaded the installation file, agreeing to the 250-page terms of use that nobody ever reads, because if you don't have time to read the terms of use. It would be interesting to know how many pages of terms of use there are for a software. I guess they would be like millions of pages. So there I've installed Netbeans, and now I'm starting it up. And it's just a quick demonstration of what it looks like. You'll see that the IDEs look similar. All three, the Eclipse, IntelliJ, and Netbeans all have things in common. You'll also notice that the first time you run it, it's very slow because it's doing a lot of initialization. So this is me using Netbeans for the very first time and setting up a Hello World project. So I agreed to send developers statistics about my use, and then I start Java with Maven, which is a makefile, a program for generating makefiles. Makefiles are a set of commands that compile your code. And then this is me looking at a screen that asks if I want an additional piece of software. And you can see there's some sort of error message there, right? So it's looking for an additional piece of supporting software, so I agreed to install that. I did more terms and agreements there, another 200 pages. And there I'm getting a message that the installation was successful for the supporting piece of software. So it's still setting up the new project. So setting up the new project for the very first time is a little bit tedious. Of course, it's not like that for every other time. It's only the first time that it's so tedious. Now I'm entering a project name, so all your Java files have to belong to a project. And so I am picking out a project name. The other pieces of information are optional. You don't have to enter a group name or a company name or a version name or anything like that. And there you can notice where your project locations are, so where all your source code is stored on your local disk, and so on. I've hit like OK, like make my project, and you can see at the bottom there's a status bar, building dictionary. So it does take quite some time, this very first initialization process. Okay, so finally the GUI is initializing, the actual GUI to the Netbeans IDE. You can see there in the lower left it says please wait as it initializes the navigator. But you can see the projects in the top left, right? That's very similar to IntelliJ and Eclipse. And then there's a navigator in the bottom left, which is also similar. There's a start page. And this is me adding a new class, like a Hello World style class for the very first time. Right, so there's my project. I right click on the project and I select new Java class. Right, and then I give the class a name, Hello World. And I have my new Java class in my new project. Right, and there are some Doxygen comments automatically started in there. So you can see the author tag and Bob there. So it's automatically helping me with my, not Doxygen, JavaDoc, sorry. Sometimes I might confuse JavaDoc and Doxygen. They're very, very similar. The syntax for Doxygen and JavaDoc is the same. The only difference is what they output. Doxygen can output more things than JavaDoc, collaboration graphs and so on. Okay, so that was just a little hello world, hello NetBeans world demonstration. Just for edification purposes, it's not required. So it was just for edification and demonstration purposes. Any questions about installing NetBeans? Or I hope that everybody already installed an IDE on their home computers and is starting to work on that already. I went through that just because I am using NetBeans, so you can see what it's like. Now, the next part of the demonstration is setting up Git, which is the program we use for version control, and then GitLab, which is the server side of the version control. So Git is the client side. That's the side that's required for you to use. And then when you want to back up your code and share it with a team, you have to push it to the server, right? So we're setting up the Git client, and then we're setting up the GitLab server, right? And I'm going to go through a little demonstration of doing that with NetBeans on my home computer, right? That's what the next demo is. And this is going to be required for your coursework, and that's what today's lab is about. Today's lab is about getting version control working and setting that up. Are there any questions so far? Okay, here's one. Do we have to be here, or can we go on with the lab on our own? You don't have to be here. You can just start the lab. You don't need to be watching my demos. I can see the enthusiasm is so high that some people want to just go as quickly as possible and get through the lab. That's fine. Okay, so I will go through the stages of setting up version control on my own machine. It's a demo video. So this is setting up Git in GitLab with NetBeans. And look, I'm actually including something I tried that didn't work. So this is me using NetBeans, and now I'm trying to set up version control, which step one is setting up the Git client. And as a fun test, I thought, okay, let's see if I can do this purely through the IDE, right, without using any commands. Nothing from the command line, and let's just see if we can install it directly from the IDE. So I chose to install the Git program through the NetBeans IDE. That's what's going on right now. So I tried to initialize version control through NetBeans, and it's saying you don't have all your software, and then bam, I get this message. Can't install the software because it's not currently available from the software update server. So you're gonna run into roadblocks like that. So now I'm downloading and installing the Git client for version control on my local machine. So that's what I'm doing now. So I tried to do that through the IDE. It failed. And now I'm doing it on my own manually, so to speak. So I do a search for the Git client on my Mac OS. And now I'm looking to see, okay, I'm looking at the search results, going, okay, which website looks like the right one for downloading a good Git client. Inevitably, all of your setups, your so-called administration, will involve some trial and error. So I found one that I thought looked good. There are multiple versions of Git. You don't have to use this version, obviously. This is the version I'm using. I'm looking at the Git client web page and just to see if it looks like a reasonable version. So it ends up taking me to sourceforge.net for the Git client for the Mac. So I'm looking at the SourceForge options, trying to decide which version of Git to install for my Mac. I've chosen a version and now I'm just waiting for the download. So eventually I get a download, an installation package to download. So that's me downloading the Git client. It's not such a big piece of software, so I can actually wait a few seconds. And now I'm installing the Git client. Hopefully there'll be another 200-page terms of use document. Okay, this is an error, kind of an error message that the Mac OS is giving me, saying this package has not been downloaded from a trusted source. So the Mac can give you that error message. And then you have to adjust your security settings to let the Mac OS install this package. And here I'm looking around trying to figure out how to do that. I have this vague memory in my head that I need to enable the security settings to use this package. But I've forgotten how to do it. So now I'm looking around trying to remember how to enable the security settings. I actually saw the place that I missed the first time, but anyways, it's not a perfect process. So finally I remember where to, there it is, there's the message that I need to enable to let the Mac OS install this piece of software, the message that I overlooked. So now it's finally installing the Git client. So this is part of your lab assignment, is to install the Git client. That's part 1. Now you need to set up the Git client to work with whichever IDE you're using. You're probably using IntelliJ or Eclipse. This one happens to be NetBeans. Now that I've downloaded and installed the Git client, I am now getting it to work with NetBeans, the NetBeans IDE. I get this message again about installing Git, and I cancel it because I've already installed it myself. And here's a Java file. So I go to Teams and then Git and then initialize. It will be slightly different in your IDE how to get it initialized in the first place, but it will be a very similar process. So initialize, git initialize repository. Remember, repository is the term we use for our local set of files and remote set of files. There's the path in which all of the Git and version control information will be stored, and you can see in my console a message there creating Git and where it's creating it, the directory, and it's already finished, so it's a very fast process. And now I'm going to, I believe, check in the file. Oh no, I'm still setting up the Git. So I'm specifying my name and my email address, and this information is added every time you check in a file. So every time you check in a file, it will automatically add your name and your email address in the version control history. Right? If you're working in a team, you need to be able to identify every person who checked in and checked out a file every time. So every check-in and check-out is associated with a person, right? That's very important. So you can find out who broke a file when it breaks. You can see hello git.java has turned green, the file name. That means it's checked out properly. And now I hit commit. So commit means check in. I'm checking in the file, right? I've done some work on it and now I'm checking it in, and there you can see it's working in the console. You can see the actual commands that the Git client is using to check in the file. I'm using it through the IDE, but you can also use a command line version and actually manually enter the commands. Now this is local version control on my own machine, right? And this is me just checking out again, checking it out from my own repository, demonstrating the checking out. So that is only the client side of the story, and the client side of version control. Now we're setting up the server. This process is the same for everybody. This does not depend on who you're, hold on, I will put it on pause for a second. The server side does not depend on which machine you're using, where you're using it, what operating system you have, or what IDE you have. The process of setting up the GitLab server is the same for everybody. Right? Everybody is using the same GitLab server, which is set up here at the University of Nottingham, and the process is identical. So what we're seeing now will be exactly the same for everybody. So first thing is to go to the GitLab server URL, projects.cs.not.ac.uk, and enter your username and password. The server is called GitLab. It's extremely similar to GitHub. There's the Welcome to GitLab page. And we are creating a new project. That's our goal today, is to set up and create a brand new project that we can use for our coursework. That's what it looks like when you set up a new project. You enter a new project name. It can be whatever you want. There's the project URL right there. You can see. You can make it private, and then you can hit create project, and there it is. There's your new project. And it's kind of fun because you can see these are the Git commands you enter on your client in order to get it to work with the repository, the server repository. You don't have to do that, but it is very interesting to see the actual Git commands you need to use on the command line to connect your client with the server. I am not doing that though. I'm a little bit lazy and I want to do it through the IDE. I don't want to enter all those Git commands from a command line. You can do that, it's absolutely fine. But I am going to demonstrate how to make the connection between my Git client on my Mac in Netbeans and the GitLab server. So here I am back in Netbeans, and then I'm choosing to set up my GitLab server. So there I need to enter the project URL. So there it is. I'm copying my project URL from GitLab to my Netbeans client. And there it is, the repository URL. And now I'm entering my username and password for the GitLab server. And I say save password, and then I hit finish. And there it says connecting to the repository. I click master to master. Those are the master projects. So my local master project should correspond to the server master project. And then I hit finish. And then it says branch origin master created locally. Do you want to set up a branch master to track the remote changes? Yes, I do. And then you can see a message in the console, right? Now the last test is to see if I've made the connection, right? So now I'm looking to see if I made the connection, and I'm looking to see if my source code ended up on the server, right? And that's what I'm doing there. I'm going back to the server and I'm checking, did my source code end up on the server? And there it is. So there's a version of my source code on the server. And that's it. That's it for the demonstration of setting up the Git client and the GitLab server on my local machine. Yes, the tutorial is only for Netbeans. You will find links to tutorials for IntelliJ and what's the other one? Eclipse in the lab sheet. You'll find that in the lab sheet. You'll also find a link to those demonstration videos in the lab sheet. So I've already uploaded those demo videos in the lab sheet, so you can watch them again if you want. And I will also mention that I've uploaded a recording of Tuesday's lecture to Moodle, so that's there as well. And I can mention one other thing, which is I have a YouTube channel. So if you can find me on YouTube, I've set up some playlists on YouTube, and one of the playlists is software engineering lectures, and you can find some helpful supplementary lectures if you are forgetting any of your software engineering concepts. You can find some supplementary lectures on there. And you'll notice I've added some new ones. How to set up NetBeans and how to set up Git and GitLab with NetBeans on the Mac OS and so on. And there's the latest lecture from last Tuesday. That's optional. I just thought I would mention that just in case anybody finds it helpful. But everything is on Moodle, so Moodle is the central repository for all the teaching material. Okay, any questions so far? So I think what I'm going to do is stop the formal demonstration and go into the standard lab mode, which is asking all the lab helpers to answer the questions while everybody's working on the lab. So I wish everybody success in getting through the lab, and we'll be standing by answering questions for everybody. Good luck.